You got house sound, right? Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the San Bernardino County Advisory Redistricting Commission. Today, Wednesday, October 13th, 2021. This afternoon, we would like to welcome Mayor Pro Temp Jim Schooler, who will lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Mayor Pro Temp Jim Schooler was elected in November 2018. Jim has lived in the Morongo Basin for over 40 years. The hometown feel of the smaller desert communities made for a perfect place to raise a family and to get involved in local affairs. Following an over 20-year career in local government, Jim applied his extensive knowledge of the Morongo Basin to a new endeavor and became a realtor. He has been part of the development and carefully managed growth of the community through his public service. Some of his regional contributions include working with the League of California Cities Desert Mountain Division and the Mojave Air Quality District. Thank you, Mayor Pro Temp Jim Schooler. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, and welcome to Yucca Valley. If you would bow your heads for an invocation. Heavenly Father, we thank you for each and every one who is here today. We pray that you would lead and guide these discussions as we seek your wisdom so that proper and effective decisions can be made. Help the participants to clearly understand the objectives and expectations of this meeting and to stay focused on those things. Help the group to address all the topics that need to be discussed and to come up with excellent solutions for the people of our county and to leave this meeting inspired and on time. We pray this in your holy name. Amen. Amen. And if you'll join me in the pledge. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
At this time, we will take roll call of the commission. Madam Secretary, Ms. Monell.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Judge Davis? Vice Chair Nakeen?
Present.
Judge King? Commissioner Creffield?
Present.
Commissioner Little?
Here.
Commissioner Basley?
Present.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Present.
Commissioner Anderson? Present. Commissioner Shannon? Commissioner Reynolds? Present. Commissioner Hazlett? Commissioner Wilson? Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Monell. That concludes the roll call. The first item on the agenda is we will review and move to approve the October 6th meeting minutes. Madam Secretary, do I have any requests to speak?
No, Madam Vice Chair, we do not.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Commissioner Creffield? And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Basley. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries to approve the October 6th meeting minutes. Now we will ask our commissioners to report on any public events they attended in the past week. Do any of the commissioners, members, have any comments or questions? Or anyone, any reports? Commissioner Hazlett.
Hi, Peggy Hazlett. So Wednesday night after our commissioners meeting on redistricting, I attended the State of the County at the Toyota Arena in Ontario and had quite a few conversations about redistricting, including a couple of the elected supervisors had their opinions. They weren't very happy with the maps. So we have our jobs cut out in front of them, but because supervisors were asking me about redistricting the maps, that carried on a lot of conversations with a lot of the attendees who we crossed paths with for the state of the county, which was an incredible event, by the way. So if anybody wasn't able to attend it, look at the YouTube channel on it, or the city or the county's website, because one of our local Apple Valley young men was the American Idol winner, and he actually did a couple of songs. So it was a fabulous event. But with the amount of feedback we received from Fontana, and then the amount of feedback I received on Wednesday night, I do believe we have, going forward, quite a bit of work to do. So take your hats off, roll up your sleeves, and let's get it done.
Thank you, Commissioner Hazlett. Do any of the other commissioners or alternate commissioners have any reports? Does anyone have any questions for Commissioner Hazlett? Yes. Judge King.
You turned away from the microphone briefly and said, and I could not hear what you were saying. It was after you said that you spoke with the supervisors.
Yes, I was being sassy to the consultants to tell them that a lot of the few supervisors that I spoke to were not happy about the maps.
About the maps that have been presented for this
Yes,
agenda?
the maps that we will be reviewing today.
The ones that we're reviewing today?
Yes. And I will have to say that, we gave direction, and so it's going to be a daunting task to try to take the largest county in the nation and compact it into a way that is beneficial for all 5 supervisors. And so our consultants have done a mighty fine job, but that is the concern, is the geographical vastness of our county and trying to make it compacted enough to allow them to serve a wide constituency. So that was the issue.
Thank you, Commissioner Hazlett. Do any of the commissioners or alternate commissioners have any further questions? Madam Secretary, do we have any requests to speak?
We do not.
Thank you. We now will move on to the third agenda item. Presenter Fabian Valdez Jr. from Redistricting Insights is here with us, and Max Rexroad is available via Zoom to provide Map King version 1 combined for review and possible modification.
Afternoon, everybody. Let me jump up and share my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see my screen now.
Yes,
Great.
I think that's your screen we're looking at.
So we wanted to start with Map King V1. Is that what we were going to start with? Okay.
Correct.
Bring this up. And put this down here. So here we have King version 1, and just a little bit of background. This is a map that Judge King had worked on. She provided me with some input on where she wanted the lines drawn. I drew them. We talked back and forth about some minor changes to make the populations work, and that's where we end up with this current map. And I can go through, I'll go through one by district first. We can talk about what the districts, where they are encompassed, and then we can talk about overall comments if you'd like. So the first district. Can you come in?
Actually, can I have a
Yes,
question?
Commissioner
Oh, sure, please.
Basley.
One question I had for all the maps is I didn't know if they had been vetted so that they would comply with the Voting Rights Act and the State Act or not. Are we just kind of starting on all these maps that these are things that we asked for and we're going to go from that or not?
These maps are based upon the direction that the commission gave. They have not been vetted for compliance with the Voting Rights Act.
Okay. All right, good, thank you.
Thank you.
So starting with the corner, so I'm going to start with the 4th district and move upwards. Starting with the 4th district. This district is, as you can see, the cities of Chino Hills, Chino, Ontario, and Montclair. And then it reaches over eastward to Fontana. And it takes Fontana right here at the 10 freeway. Everything's south of the 10 freeway in Fontana. And then follows the city boundaries over by Bloomington. So that's the 4th district, as drawn.
Should we engage in discussion as we go, or you
Let
want
me,
to go
let,
through
let
it
me,
all
give me the
first?
opportunity to tell you about all the districts, and then we'll go back and we'll, unless the commission would rather go one at a time and speak about each district as it's drawn. I'm okay with either. Is there any preference?
The commissioners have a preference? No. Let's go ahead and go through one by one, and then we can open it up for discussion.
I'll go through, just explain what the districts are, and then we'll go back to and we'll talk about each one individually. Does that work?
Okay.
Judge?
Thank you.
The 2nd district here, this is the cities of Upland and Rancho Cucamonga, and then the rest of Fontana, the northern section north of the 10. It also includes the unincorporated area above Rancho Cucamonga and the area of San Antonio Heights. And you can see it, again, follows the Fontana city boundaries. It also includes the unincorporated area in between Rancho Cucamonga and Fontana. District 5, which is just to the east of that, here has Bloomington, Rialto, most of San Bernardino, sorry. Actually, I think it's all of San Bernardino.
It's
I think
all
it
of
is
San
all
Bernardino.
all of San Bernardino. Colton Grand Terrace, and then it cuts out. It does not include Highland or Redlands or Loma Linda. And it also does not come up into the National Forest area. It stays out of the forest. That's District 5. I'm going to zoom out a bit so we can see the next couple districts since they're a little larger. District 3 takes all the forest area from the western edge of the county all the way through the forest. It includes the areas of Redlands, Highlands, Yucaipa, Loma Linda, Oak Glen, and then it comes into the basin, Morongo Basin, takes all of that and goes all the way east. I'm going to turn off the street view so it goes a little faster here. Goes all the way east to the edge of the county, including the areas of Needles and Big River. And it also scoops in Barstow and Fort Irwin and Baker. And then that's the 3rd district. And then the 1st district is this other one that includes the rest of the northern part of the county and comes down into the Victor Valley and includes all of the high desert areas in the Victor Valley, with the exception of Lucerne, which is going into the 3rd district. So now that I've given an overview of the map and where the districts are drawn, if you'd like, we can start back with the 4th district, or we can start wherever you would like. Whoever has comment or wants to talk about it.
Okay, let's go ahead and start in District 4. Do any of the commissioners have questions or comments?
I do.
Okay, yes, Judge King.
The reason I included the southern portion of Fontana, obviously I don't want to break up the city of Fontana. I don't want to break up any city, but I was having difficulty coming up with sufficient numbers for District 4. Do I not have that on correctly? Okay, thank you. Having gone through some of the other maps that are proposed, apparently if you include the unincorporated area of Fontana, which is contiguous with Ontario,
She's speaking about this
And-
area right here.
if that is included when District 4 with Ontario, Chino, and Chino Hills and Montclair, then none of the city of Fontana is cut out, is all in the supervisorial district.
Yeah,
District
that is
2.
correct. Right.
And so if the map was modified to just have that unincorporated area rather than the area south of the 10 freeway, then there would not be a city that's broken up. All cities would be in total in whatever district they're allocated to.
So to be clear, what you're suggesting is this area of Fontana, basically putting that into the 2nd district and taking this area, the unincorporated area, and putting that in the 4th district. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I think it would be a stronger map that way because it wouldn't break up the city of Fontana.
Right.
And like I said, it keeps every other city whole as well. There's another aspect of the map that I think would make it stronger, and that is the unincorporated area north of Rancho. Then above that, north of that unincorporated area and north of San Antonio Heights is the U.S. forestry land, which is massive in our county, as you well know. The issues in terms of the U.S. forestry land, as I understand them, and my experience is limited, but that in that portion of the county, it's access to that forestry land that is the key issue, that to the cities that are the foothill cities because of fire issues. For example, Cucamonga Canyon, all even up into Baldy area, why they do have recreational snow activities. Their biggest issue, I think, are hikers and safe access to that public area. And that's true for those communities. So the rest of the U.S. forestry area, you know, the Crestline, the Lake Arrowhead, Running Springs, and Big Bear, they all have the common interest of recreational pursuits involving snow as well as fire. And then, you know, they also have incorporated cities to address particular issues, whereas the forestry land north of Upland and Rancho is unoccupied and access is an issue. So it seems to me that it would be appropriate to put the line of District 2, you wouldn't be increasing the population, but just put the line of District 2 up into that forestry area so as to include those access lands with the foothill community.
Are you suggesting coming as far as Wrightwood and Lytle Creek, or are you speaking more of
No,
just this area here?
Short of going to that, to Lytle Creek and Wrightwood.
Just short of it, maybe right around here is what you're thinking.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't
Sorry,
hear.
right just south of Lytle Creek. You're talking about this area just south of Lytle Creek, correct?
Correct, that's what
Okay.
I believe would be an appropriate break, to push that line out and shouldn't affect the population
I don't believe many people live
distribution.
in that area, yeah. I don't think it would affect the population almost at all.
Anyway, those are my two comments that I think would make it stronger.
Do any of the commissioners or alternate commissioners have any questions or comments about the 4th district? On this proposed map? Okay, seeing none, I guess we'll go ahead and move into the 2nd.
Again, the 2nd district is Upland, San Antonio Heights, Rancho, Cucamonga, including the areas above it, and then Fontana and the unincorporated area in Fontana.
If I may echo Judge King's concern, if you move that line up to essentially the crest of the hill, you're not taking in any additional people, it's unpopulated. But you combine both access, but also the concern of people in northern Rancho Cucamonga, San Antonio Heights, Upper Fontana is fire protection. Currently, those are in different congressional districts, and essentially what I hear is you call your congressman and he says, well, I don't represent that location, and you call the other one and he says, well, you don't live in my district. And that's something I think we could prevent at the county level, where without really throwing off what's otherwise an excellent map, moving that line up, as I say, to the crest of the hill. I wouldn't include, say, Wrightwood, because to get to Wrightwood, you can't go over the hill. There isn't a road over the hill. You have to go all the way around. It's essentially aligned more with Hesperia and Victorville. One last comment, I think Ms. Hazlett has a comment too, but Mount Baldy there is in District, is it 3, Fabian?
Yes, it's in District 3 currently, yes.
So it's a one-way route. It terminates at Baldy. You can't go farther up the hill. It dumps out, or if you drive out of Baldy, you end up in San Antonio Heights. The road straddles the LA County, San Marino County line.
Oh,
But
so on this side.
I would say Baldy, this would throw off some of your numbers. Baldy really should be in District 2 with San Antonio Heights because that's the access to it and where people from Mount Baldy come down the hill to do things. They don't go to Wrightwood, you can't get there from there, basically.
So, to be clear, you're saying this area here,
No, it's at the county line on the far left.
this side?
Right there. There's a town there called Mount Baldy with several hundred people.
Okay.
And as I say, it doesn't connect roadwise with Wrightwood without going down to the 210, up the 15, and around.
Got it.
It's a very long and circuitous route, but it really is it's also unincorporated, as is San Antonio Heights, but it's essentially a satellite, with no offense to the people who live there. I'm going to call it a satellite of Upland because that's how it operates.
So you're suggesting maybe cutting the line somewhere here and then coming underneath Lytle Creek?
I'll leave Lytle Creek out of my comments because I believe Lytle Creek people take that road down and end up in northern Fontana. Probably Lytle Creek would be better placed in the southern area, but let me listen to some other comments on that. But it does seem to be a south of the mountain community rather than a north of the crest community.
Commissioner
Yep,
Besley?
I did like this map for a number of reasons, but there were 3 issues that I had with it, and 2 of them the other commissioners have already addressed, and that was the Fontana issue. So I like the change there. And then I know there were comments originally from some of the public about keeping all the mountains together, but there are really 2 separate mountains going on here. And the access to Baldy is important. I think the 2nd district should include that. So those are the 2 of the 3. The 3rd issue, and I saw this with a number of maps, is how big the 3rd district is. And it wasn't so much, the 1st district historically has been huge. So it's not so much the size, but, quite literally, if you include, those mountains on the west side, that 3rd district 3rd district supervisor is, covering area, for instance, Wrightwood, that you have to go up the pass and across. And if we take care of the line to the south of that crest, then that person wouldn't have to try to access Baldy. And then all the way to the east, and that concerned me that whole west portion there of the 3rd district, which is primarily mountains, and then you have Lytle Creek and Wrightwood, was included in 3rd district. And of course, I don't know what that does with the mountains, with the districts as far as numbers, if Wrightwood could be included in the 1st district. But that did concern me that the 3rd district had to cover literally from the far west to the far east, with a lot of towns and cities in between, compared to what the 1st district used to be, which was, there were a few cities there. So that was the 3rd concern that they had, and I don't know how to fix that, but that concerned me on a number of these maps.
Okay, and actually, I'd like to echo your comments there with Wrightwood. I actually grew up in the Wrightwood Phelan area, and I think it would be most appropriate more if it was in District 1, because that is where people that reside in Wrightwood typically would do their shopping or get their essentials, and basically have to go through District 1 to come down Cajon Pass area. Again, I'm not sure what that would do with the numbers, but, and another note on that is the school district, Snowline Unified in Wrightwood, the kids would actually go to high school and middle school in the Phelan area. So again, you have them down in the desert region. So I think that, depending on how the numbers would work, that community would be more aligned with the desert regions than that of 3rd district. Although they do have the recreational end of it, but the people that actually live there on a daily basis get a lot of their services from the high desert.
Question. So that's the area of Wrightwood. You say most of them get their services in the Pinion Hills Phelan area, right?
Correct.
Is that also the same for Lytle Creek, or is that not the case for Lytle Creek?
Lytle Creek would come down, and I think Commissioner Little could help me with this, would come down more into the Fontana area off of Sierra. that.
So it would seem that those two population would offset each other in all likelihood. If Wrightwood went up with one and, I'm sorry, no, Lido Creek went with two. That would keep our numbers good in terms of
And
the
basically
size.
cutting the line, keeping Crest line in the third, though, would be the intention.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what's been stated.
Okay, any other comments on, I think we had kind of talked about second. Commissioner Hazlett, did you have a comment?
I may be jumping the gun here, but with District 3, if we're going to take the communities of Wrightwood,
I was gonna say right here.
that's better. I don't want to be seen, I just want to be heard. Okay. So with District 3, though, we need to shift some population numbers. And I think a shift would be to pull Loma Linda, what is below the 10 freeway, into District 3, get rid of Wrightwood, so you don't have a supervisor running from the eastern border to the western border. I agree with Baldy, because that dumps into Rancho Cucamonga, that needs to be part of District 2. But Lido Creek dumps into District 5. So by removing what is in District 5 with Loma Linda and,
So which part of Loma Linda, so this is Loma Linda here.
so Loma Linda goes above the 10 freeway and down the 10 freeway. So Loma Linda needs to go to District 3.
It currently is in District 3. That's the yellow line here.
I didn't see that.
Loma Linda.
Where's Loma Linda in this? That's Redlands.
So it's there, it's just so zoomed out, because it's such a large district on the PDF, it's difficult to see it in
Then
the
maybe you
corner.
need to take Grand Terrace then.
Okay. And so to get,
I'm
be
trying to
clear-
get your numbers,
right.
so I was trying to get your
so
numbers
to
with
be
Loma
clear,
Linda.
moving basically
He
coming
has a
down.
much nicer map than this one I'm looking at.
So
So take Grand
coming down the
Terrace.
215 basically and grabbing Grand Terrace in this little section of Colton and putting that in the third.
Correct.
And then moving Lido Creek into the fifth
Mhm.
and Wrightwood into the first as well.
First.
Okay,
Okay, and if there's any way that with these numbers, when you're looking at the population numbers,
Mm-hmm.
if the third district can get rid of some of this top stuff,
yes.
the
this-
Barstow, Fort Irwin,
Oh, the Barstow Fort Irwin, so that's the other part, so up
and
here.
yes,
And you're saying put that in the first district, the Barstow Fort Irwin
Yeah.
areas? Okay.
you have a supervisor that's,
This area
it's not just a,
here,
right, so I think Supervisor Crutchfield said this, the first district doesn't have the population in that vastness. The third district has this population, has representation that's necessitated because those are recognized cities. You're going to have either staff or representation somehow, some way, just like getting here today. You're going to have a warm body here sometime. That's almost cost prohibitive and a waste of resources when you're looking at travel. And if you're going all the way from Needles to Wrightwood, there's not an easy way to do that, dude. You're
Right.
gonna,
so the idea would be to take Barstow, Fort Warren, and Baker, put those in the
first district, and then take some of that lower stuff.
And then down here, take Grand Terrace and the part of
Yeah,
Colton,
it's almost that,
and then move
right.
this, but keeping Crestline Lake Arrowhead in the third district as well.
Yes, because that is
Okay.
an easy traverse across the top of the mountain there.
Got it.
That, you have to come back down to get over to Wrightwood.
Right.
You can't, unless you've got a big jump in your,
So I do have a concern about that, moving, grabbing Grand Terrace, which, and part of Colton. What you're going to do is that you're going to split Bloomington, because Bloomington's part of the unincorporated portion of the city of Rialto. So now you're creating a gerrymander. By,
I think the commissioner was advocating for moving, let me get into the part of the map so we can see it better here. Oh, I'm outside of the map bounds here.
I would leave Bloomington as part
Yeah, Bloomington over here would stay in the 5th. The idea would be to take this area of Colton and this area of Grand Terrace and push them east into the 3rd district, but this area of Colton, Rialto, and Bloomington would stay in the 5th.
And then we're splitting the city.
And then you
And what
split the
is the
city.
reason for it? I
Right,
don't-
and then what would you do? You incorporate Highland into the
Well,
5th
Highland would
district?
stay the same, it's still in the 3rd, it would stay in the 3rd district.
And then the population, oh, you have a population issue.
Potentially. I haven't done, by the way, the reason I'm not making the changes as we're talking through them is because I want y'all to have your ability to talk about the changes, and then I'm making notes on this stuff so I can then go through and make the changes and determine whether or not those are possible, and then I can make reports on that.
Okay. Is there any further comment on District 2 and District 3? We've kind of pushed forward. Yes, Commissioner Anderson.
Yes, I do have a question on the District 3, which I believe currently on this map Needles is in. And
Correct.
what they were just talking about was moving Barstow and Fort Irwin back into one.
Yes.
With all due respect, that is where Needles belongs, because on our, what do you say, traffic corridors and traveling, that is the smoothest, easiest way for us to go anywhere. Anything south and down this way is not,
Okay.
for the same reasons everyone else was talking about. Ours is, and our population deviation probably wouldn't add up to a prison anyway.
So you're advocating then for taking the area, basically maybe using this, is this the 40? Basically using the 40 as the
Yes.
dividing
Yes.
line, and everything north of the 40 going into the 1st, including Needles.
Right.
And everything south of the 40 coming into the 3rd.
Correct.
I concur with Mr. Anderson, thank you.
That, using I-40 like a landmark would be, I think appropriate because it's the main thoroughway to Needles, I believe, from like local San Bernardino County to the urban San Bernardino County. So we just have to kind of see what the numbers would do with that.
And then, so, okay. Did we talk about 5 or 1? We haven't talked about 5 or 1.
We have not,
Okay,
no.
understood.
Let's go ahead and move into 1, since we're kind of going that way with discussing putting Needles in 1, as well as Fort Irwin and Baker, I believe, or Barstow. Any questions or comments on the map as, for District 1 as it's drawn here, other than what we've already brought up? Okay, any discussion? Yes,
I have a comment.
yes,
I mean, I
Judge
think
King.
When you get right down to it, if you start putting the pieces together, you have the problem with the numbers. And District 1 has a lot of population. And they have a lot in common with those communities that are around Victorville, Hesperia, et cetera, and you don't want to break that up either. So I guess I don't understand the position that how you access the property or the land is necessarily a significant consideration as to whether or not it goes in one district or another. Could you please explain to me what you were referring to? I didn't understand.
Well, right now, the way I understand it from the local individuals that have spoke to me is they prefer District 1 where they're at. Nobody wants to come, we've ran into a lot of problems in the last 5 years at Needles. We've talked about that before in other meetings. Well, when you start forcing people to come down into this area to go to a court versus staying on I-40 with a straight shot to Barstow to go to a court, which would you rather do? It's, the
And the
whole
court
thing
is
is,
tied
we're out
to-
in the middle of nowhere. One's
court
a
is-
freeway, the others are back road highways with no services.
It's just that the court is not tied to supervisorial
I'm
district.
not talking about just the court, it's almost, I don't even see the connection down here, other than we're in a desert. But so is 1/3 of the county. what I'm trying to get at is Needles is happy up there and with the services and everyone they know and how they do. What I'm getting at is you're putting us into a whole different region. I don't even know what our deals with Crestline and all that. Honestly, I do not see it. When we talk about this interest commonalities and trying to keep a district, we have none. That whole, we're just a little speck out here on the right. Why is it being moved all the way down here when you could just leave it where it is? I don't understand.
If I can, looking at this
Yes,
map
Commissioner
too.
Crutchfield.
Thank you. I mean, again, I think there's importance to, Victorville, Apple Valley, Hesperia, Adelanto. I see that Phelan's been, if I'm reading this right, Phelan's been cut out of the district. I know that our district used to go all the way up and it would cut through Barstow, through Baker, and then down through Needles. And I know this is really tough because, when you're moving lines, it's just not as simple as moving a line and everything looks good. It's about population and everything else. But, I think Phelan is part of the core of that high desert right there with Hesperia, Apple Valley, Adelanto, Victorville.
And it is included.
In the
I
map
was gonna
that's
say
drawn,
it is in
Phelan
one.
is still in the first district with those.
Oh, it is, okay.
Okay.
I did,
Sometimes the PDFs are a little difficult because
Okay,
when you have
good.
such a large geography, it's hard to see all the.
good. I just didn't see any color over Phelan, so I thought that meant it was cut out, so, okay.
And that was kind of why we had wanted to put Wrightwood it back, or not back, but push it into District 1 because they get their services from the Phelan Pinion Hills area. So, yes,
Yeah, my
Commissioner
concern-
Dasley.
My concern is the same as Judge King's in that, once you start adding Needles and Baker, and I'm not sure if you wanted to include Barstow back in or not, but then the numbers just aren't there then first district. The numbers are too great there. In the third district, you see, even with this map, the numbers are below the deviation. If you take Barstow out, you've got a problem there trying to figure out where to grab people for
Yeah,
the third district.
Just looking at the numbers, I think the recommendation was if they were to swap out and take Barstow and kind of north of the 40 and Wrightwood and put those in the first district, the third district would then come down and grab Grand Terrace and that portion of Colton. And that would try to offset the population difference. I think that was what was suggested. Yes.
So that,
And just, this might be a little helpful. What I can do here is put a number on these cities and designated towns and places, which might make this a little easier to kind of conceptualize. So you can see Barstow has about 25,000 people, a little over 25,000. Coming up here, Fort Irwin's about 8,000. Baker's just, half a thousand, 500 or so, and then Needles is 5,000. So between those, between the 5,000, the 8,000, and the 25,000 and the others, you're looking at about 40,000 people. If you're taking the north of the 40, you're taking about 40,000 people into the first. So the idea would then be the third, which is currently 9,000 people under, would be 50,000 people under, so you'd need to go pull up enough to get it back within the population deviation. And I think the idea was to take it over here, out of part of Colton and Grand Terrace. And the idea there, you can see Grand Terrace is about 13,000, Colton has 53,000, so you would probably have to come up pretty deep into Colton to get the population, but you could probably cut it somewhere over in this direction with Grand Terrace and be able to make the population up. But you would be indeed splitting the city of Colton.
so in order to, not definely, but possibly taking Needles and putting it back into the first district, there's a potential we would need to split a city such as Colton to get the population? Am I understanding that?
That, to the best of my understanding, yes. And also, currently, the first district is about 20,000 underpopulated, the way this is drawn. If we're adding 50,000 in, and then it would actually be 55,000 if we put in Wrightwood as well, we'd be 35,000 over. which that is also a very high deviation. So the first district would be, I think one of the commissioners mentioned, it would be a little overpopulated as well. So that's something to consider. If you're adding all those into one district, it would be probably much higher, probably around 8% on deviation high.
That's high.
However,
Yes,
if you
Judge
didn't,
King.
if you didn't add in Barstow, that would make a big difference.
Yeah,
Right now-
Barstow is the largest of those cities that was advocated for moving back into the first district. Barstow's the largest of
That
them.
was not, if it stayed in District 3.
And then you were to instead to come over and grab Yermo and move
and
across, yes, it's a
And got
much
Needles
smaller.
into
Yeah,
one,
Right.
then you wouldn't have as much to make up.
that's correct.
Because that's the
Then you wouldn't have to reach so far south in order to compensate
Yeah,
for that.
yeah, exactly. You'd be taking a smaller portion of Colton in that case, a much smaller portion of Colton. And it would allow you to not be super overpopulated in the first district. The first district would probably end up being about even population to the ideal, which is about 436,000, so yeah.
Another source of population is you could take, sever off Arrowhead from Big Bear, and there's a fairly unpopulated route between them, because this District 3, as drawn, goes from the Nevada line to the LA County line. Sorry, just a refresh while I'm looking at it here, Fabian. But you could pull in 12,000 something votes from Big Bear and then have
Zoom in
pass
for you so you can
Arrowhead
see those
back
numbers
into
better.
the,
Yeah, so there you go. There's Lake Arrowhead and,
get back into one.
yeah, Lake Arrowhead's about 12,000, Running Springs about 5,200. I'll zoom in one more time so you can see Crestline is about 11,000. So between Arrowhead and Crestline, you're looking at about 24,000, roughly. And then Big Bear City, and Big Bear Lake also has a small population. I zoom in a bit, we should be able to see it here. It's about 5,000 in Big Bear Lake, and Big Bear has about 12,000, so. 12,000.
Somewhere around $17,000 to $20,000 people between Big Bear and Big Bear Lake.
Yeah.
Could be, well, actually, I guess they'd stay in 3, but the area westward to that, to the line, which would solve the other issue we talked about involving the crest of the hill, crest of the foothills north of
And so you
Rancho
would advocate for putting Crestline, Lake Arrowhead, and Lido Creek into the second?
Yes, but it may throw things off elsewhere, which is always the case.
Yeah.
But it would, if you're trying to pull votes out of 3, that would be a way to do it, in order to compensate for adding Barstow into 3. I'm sorry, Barstow's already in 3.
Barstow's in 3 currently, yes.
In this not.
We would be taking out Yermo, Needles, and Wrightwood and putting out of the third and putting those into the first. If we were to leave Barstow in the third. Otherwise, we'd also be taking Barstow and putting it in.
Oh, so let me rephrase it. So if you move this line to, as Commissioner Anderson was saying, to correspond roughly to the I-40, you'd need to find more votes in 1, and those could be Crestline, Lake Arrowhead, et cetera votes
So,
on that end of things. to
yeah,
go
these
into
ones would,
one.
you're suggesting these would stay in the third district, and the Crestline, Lake Arrowhead, Big Bear, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So I don't,
It's either that, I'm sorry to interrupt, it's
That's
either
okay.
that or the Colton, go the Colton route and pull
Yeah.
votes from Colton inward, or you could do it along the mountains.
Well, the third already has Lake Arrowhead, Big Bear, and all those, so we would still need to take, if we're taking out anything north of the 40, even if, whether or not we take Barstow, there would still be a population that needs to be made up in the third, and that, there's a couple places you can get it. The most likely place would be over here in the more urban sections of the county, and basically, the parts of the county that the third district bumps up again that are urban are the Colton Grand Terrace area and then San Bernardino.
I see, I'm sorry, I had it reversed, I appreciate that.
Yep.
and maybe I don't understand this, and maybe you guys can kind of give me some feedback, but I don't understand why we would leave Barstow in 3, but move Needles, when Barstow is, I mean, I could be wrong, but I believe we got comments when we were in Barstow that they felt more in line of community of interest with the Victor Valley Hesperia. Needles being its own city without the closeness of other cities, it doesn't make sense to me to move them to first district, to pull a city that is been defined as a community of interest with the Victor Valley out of the same district.
Right, I think the reason that it was advocated for leaving Barstow in the third was just a population number.
Right, and so I'm just not really comfortable with that because, again, the I-15, the Victor Valley, it's grown up so much, it literally stretches almost all the way into Barstow as one continuous urban town. I mean, it's not like it was maybe 20 years ago where there was a big divide between Barstow and, the outer limits of Apple Valley. So I would like to see some discussion about that because I understand the concerns of the citizens of Needles, but to me, it's like we're just kind of pulling Barstow, but it doesn't have anything around it that would come into three.
Wasn't Barstow used to be in 2 different districts, wasn't it?
Yes, it still is, until it is.
The current
Currently.
supervisor lines would be like.
Yeah, it is split right now.
So there's the current supervisor lines. You can see this red line, and you can see it cuts off a piece of Barstow right here.
Commissioner
I had a
Basley?
question, just logistically, trying to go forward and trying to figure out tomorrow's meeting. So if we have some kind of consensus about a particular map, is the plan then to have the consultant have that ready for tomorrow, and then we would talk about Voting Rights Act? Or, at what point, because all this could be for naught if we've got a problem there.
Okay, so the agenda for tomorrow does have all of these 5 maps on it and would incorporate any direction today that the commission gave to the consultant about that. I can't speak to Voting Rights Act issues for the changes to the maps until I see what those numbers do.
Right.
As I talked about at our meeting last time, the recommendation is that we have at least one district that's similar to what the current District 5 has as far as the Latino citizen voting population, and at least District 4. So, I mean, if we have a set map, I can talk about Voting Rights Act issues connected with it. I don't know, when I would get anything specific, depending on what's changed.
Okay, so we could go through each one of these maps and either decide yea or nay if we're going to go forward, but if we go forward, that we come to some kind of consensus as far as giving direction to the consultant, and then we would have those tomorrow to discuss again, and then we would have all the CVAP numbers for those maps.
Well, I don't know if we'll have all the CVAP numbers tomorrow, depending on the number of changes done today.
We'll have the CVAP numbers, but not the analysis for that.
Yeah, so that's something to think about. But you could continue that to the meeting next week, too.
And then the other question, just logistically, was tomorrow, would the consultant be able to actually make changes on the fly to see what happens? I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can make changes on the fly. I'd wanted to have an opportunity to talk about the maps first.
Okay, great.
And then I can make changes. My intention was actually to take some of the input from today and have a version of, for instance, King V2 is what I would call it.
Right.
To talk about tomorrow, incorporating some of those changes and looking at, well, then we can live draw, okay, hey, what if we move this line over here, what would that do?
Right.
If we move this over here, what would it do? And do that kind of on the fly, starting from the place of, the input that we got today. And it wouldn't be a map for, necessarily looking at for being submitted. It would just be more of a drawing exercise based on this King V1 map that we're looking at today.
Got it. And then you could always push reset, and then you get,
We
you're
can
back.
go back to the King V1, right?
Got it.
The idea being, we would be able to look at what those changes would do if we made them.
Got it. All right, good. Thank you very much.
And if I could just request that at the end of the discussion on the map, the commission makes a motion to provide direction to the consultant to, for example, take the input given by the commissioners today to make revisions to the map or something along those lines, please.
Okay.
Would you like that to happen after we've discussed all the maps or after each map?
I'm sorry, what?
Would you like that direction to come after each map or after we've talked about all of them?
After each map, please.
Okay. So, are there any more further discussion on this map in particular?
Well, I think
Yes,
at this point,
Commissioner
then we
Besley.
need to kind of some kind of consensus for direction. We've given a lot of different direction, I think. And I'm
It's
not-
actually been pretty concise. The direction, I'll repeat the direction I've
Yes.
received
Okay.
so far.
That'd be great.
That way we're clear and everything. The direction I've received so far have been first in Fontana to remove this, I want to call it an arm, this section, the eastern section of the District 4, put that into the 2nd District and instead swap out this unincorporated area in Fontana into the 4th District. I've also been asked to add the portion south of Lido Creek, south of Wrightwood in this area of the forest to the 2nd District. I've been asked to move Wrightwood up into the 1st District. And then I've been asked also to, there's two, this is the one place where we have a little contention is the 40. Whether or not all of north of the 40 goes in the 1st District or just everything but Barstow. What I will do is I will add everything, including Barstow, north of the 40, into the 1st District. And that way you'll be able to see the total deviation when we talk about it tomorrow. You'll be able to say, oh, that's much too large, what do we do? And then we could talk about if you want to move Barstow back in to the 3rd or what we would do for that, to make up that different deviation. And also, I was asked to move, the last part is into the 3rd District to make up the population, was to take Grand Terrace and cut a little bit of Colton out and put that into the 3rd District to make up the deviation of the population. So that's what I've been asked to do. I believe that is everything, unless any commissioner has something I missed that they wanted me to add to that.
Okay, so let's just take a moment, and is there anything that we've discussed that is not on this list that a commissioner or alternate commissioner would like to see on this list?
We haven't discussed 5 at all.
5 at all?
That's fair, we have not.
Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss 5.
Pull 5 up here. And so far, the only recommendation that's been made by anybody that affects 5 is to take Grand Terrace and a piece of Colton out and put in the 3rd. That's what has been recommended so far.
We're looking at 27, 28,000. I can't see the population.
Grand Terrace, I'll zoom in a little bit here. Grand Terrace is 13,000. And then this area of Colton, I don't have the exact population, this area of Colton, but essentially I would grab enough of Colton to make the population deviation in 3 under 5% roughly.
I think it's 53,900.
Well, but that's the total of Colton. I don't know this section of Colton that I'd be
Oh,
taking.
which portion? Okay, got it.
But with that said, the deviation right now is 3.91. If you look at map 5, that would reduce the deviation to, what, yeah,
Most likely a negative, yes.
correct, if you did that. So what consideration would be to incorporate Highland into those numbers?
That wasn't something I was directed, but that, if that is something you'd like me to consider, Highland is about 57,000, so you could take portions of Highland to even out the population. The overall deviation.
Let me say this. I don't see anything wrong with the map drawn right now because it's continuous, as well as the COI and the CVAP. If you look at the numbers that you provided, the only thing I did see was that you have quite a few unincorporated areas that you can include into those, into the map itself.
You're talking about these areas next to Highland right here? These areas?
Yeah, in Colton, is that an
Oh,
unincorporated area
Yeah,
in Colton?
there's one unincorporated area right here in Colton that is not included.
Okay.
That is not included in
That is
the
not
map?
included in the 5th district, it is in the 3rd district. This little kind of arm coming down right here is an unincorporated part, it's not in Colton or Loma Linda. I'm imagining the people here consider themselves Colton, but I don't know the addresses necessarily, what's on their address forms, but this is the only unincorporated area of Colton that is currently in the 5th District.
Right, right. And I do believe they consider themselves part of Colton. And right. And then you have the Highland, which is the west side of Highland.
Right here.
Yes, which moves in, right. And those areas, those are all incorporated into Highland, correct?
These areas, these areas are unincorporated.
That's
I don't know if
unincorporated,
they are
correct,
considered Highland or San Bernardino. I'm not sure what, like I said, what's on their address forms.
I think those are all part of, well, they, again, the community, the COI, I think most of those areas on the west side of Highland would be in relationship to San Bernardino.
So you're advocating for, if we were to take this portion of Grand Terrace and Colton and move it to the 3rd.
I'm trying to see where we can make up the population.
Yeah, you would come and grab these little areas of Highland here, is what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, and I don't want to split up Highland, but.
Right, but outside of Highland, these unincorporated areas.
Because the way I see the map now, like I say, it's continuous where you have Grand Terrace and you have Colton. Part of, just think about the kids, some of the kids live in Colton but go to the school in the Rialto School District.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at that, are you gonna, now you're gonna move them into, again, the community, the COI itself, those kids are all incorporated into that area. By taking Colton out of that, you're gonna have those kids in the northern section of Colton and the western section of Colton. Now, they're in a completely different district.
Yeah, the idea would be, if moving this in the 3rd, the line, I don't know where it would be. It would probably be somewhere over in this area, probably at the river, maybe a little south of it, in order to grab Grand Terrace and make up the population deviation after losing Barstow, Needles, and the like. Yes. So this area of Colton, this southern area, southeastern portion of Colton, would be in a different district than this northwestern portion.
And
And it's one of the things
And
we're
I
trying
really-
not to do.
Right.
I really take issue with cutting up Colton for the purposes stated. I don't think it's justified at this point. And so I would appreciate if you're going to revamp it to show it both ways. I mean, I
That's
don't
what
really
I
want
was
to take
going
it
to.
out of, I don't think it's wise to split
Well,
up
what I
Colton.
can do then is I can start, instead of adding that area of Grand Terrace and Colton in, I can do a map where I take Barstow and all of those things into the 1st, and we leave the 3rd intentionally underpopulated and the 1st intentionally overpopulated. And that way we can have a discussion about how we would move the lines. And then, so I would only be moving Wrightwood, the area above Rancho Cucamonga, and then I would move everything north of the 40 into the 1st, but I would leave the Colton, Grand Terrace area alone, and Barstow would go into the 1st until we had the discussion about whether or not we moved them back and forth. We can-
Okay,
For a version of the map that we would discuss tomorrow.
all right.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, if there's no further discussion on the 5th District at this time, I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and provide instruction to Fabian and his team, Redistricting Insights, to provide a map or like a draft map off this map tomorrow at our next meeting tomorrow that shows leaving District 1 overpopulated, which would leave Needles and basically the north of the 40 in that district, and then 3 would be without Needles, but not cutting the Colton at this time. So I'd like to make a motion for that. Included in that motion, Lytle Creek was going to go to District 2, I believe. Is that correct? And Wrightwood would go to District 1. Okay, so do I have a second for that motion? And Wrightwood would go to... Okay. We're all like, wait. So do I have a second for that motion?
Real quick, Vice Chair, this is Pamela Williams. I hope you guys can all see me, and I
Oh.
apologize for not being here today. But first, and foremost, I just want to make it clear that we're not going to be able to deliver a map tomorrow.
Right.
So you need to consider that in your motion. We're not going to be able to redo a map and bring it back for tomorrow. I'll defer to Julie, but I believe there are some posting requirements that may be required. Even if there are not, we're not going to be able to turn it around that quickly. And the agenda is already posted for tomorrow's meeting.
Okay,
So this is something the commission would like to see on October 21st, and we're happy to try to make that work, but tomorrow is too short of a deadline.
okay, I mean, I'll defer to Pam if it needs to happen next week.
There's not a Brown Act issue, though. It would be logistically that the consultant can't deliver the map, because this has been agendized, this particular map with amendments for tomorrow. So it's not a Brown Act issue that I would defer to you. It's the logistic issue, is that right?
Well, there is an elections code requirement that you post drafts of maps. We've only posted this version that's sitting here today 5 days in advance.
And it says, and possible modifications for the agenda tomorrow, so.
Well, but it sounds like there might be difficulty getting those processed by tomorrow. And so maybe for all of these current maps and changes, it would be more practical to request those changes be shown next week.
Well, the only reason I bring this up is because, and what's the point of having a meeting tomorrow if we can't discuss any of the maps that are on the agenda today, and that we're going to suggest changes?
Well, you do have the map drawing workshop that's been agendized. So, I mean, in theory, you could work with the consultant and provide direction on another type of a map or some kind of revisions based upon the different maps that you saw today.
Would it be, and this is just me asking with the map drawing workshop tomorrow, if they wanted to have a starting point of this map and then go into a live drawing with a starting point of this map, is that okay, or should we not do that either?
Yeah, if you started with the existing map, King version 1,
Okay.
and then
So essentially, I could
similar to what
incorporate
we're
those
talking
changes.
about.
Basically continue the discussion of the maps
Yes.
that we've been presented and hold us over until tomorrow and continue. So we'll have 2 map drawing sessions, today and tomorrow.
Well, today isn't a map drawing session, it's a
Technically,
discussion of proposed
discussion of
maps.
proposed maps. So then we would actually continue this tomorrow night.
Okay.
So I think instead of doing your work overnight, you'll just do it in front of us
Do it in front
tomorrow.
of you. That's fine.
It's a
That
great,
works.
yeah, it's a great
You'll get to
idea.
see the system in action, so that's okay with me.
So to clarify with Ms. Sbri, that would be appropriate for the Brown Act requirements if we take these comments and just put them as the map workshop tomorrow?
So tomorrow, when you discuss King 1, the consultant could make changes at that point in time, and you could see what happens if you move lines around.
Okay.
Right.
Then I'm going to go ahead and revise my motion that I made previously to be as follows. I would like to make a motion that we take our discussion from this afternoon on the map King version 1 and use it as a starting point, use King version 1 as a starting point for tomorrow's map drawing workshop, where we can incorporate the discussion points from today, and that will also give us an opportunity to become familiarized with Maptitude, as I think was the original purpose of the workshop when we planned this out at Rialto a month ago. So I'd like to see if there would be a second for that motion.
I'll second that, Chairman.
Okay, second by Commissioner Little.
Can I have a friendly amendment?
Yes.
That the population numbers be included on the maps at all times?
Yes,
so that we can
in
work with
fact,
that.
if you see here, this kind of table, as I would make changes, you would see the changes reflected here with the district I'm pulling them from and the district I'm putting them into, and it would show you the numbers as they change over.
Okay, great.
Okay. So is there,
In our discussion before we.
yes,
vote,
discussion?
I just-
Judge King?
In the discussion, I want to just raise the point that District 4, in the map that's presently presented, has 52.08% Hispanic CVAP, and District 5 has 58.81%. So those are two districts that are in excess of a majority, or
Majority, minority, yes.
in excess of 50%, a majority, excuse me.
Any further discussion about this motion? Okay,
Commissioner, can you call for public comment before you have a final vote, please?
yes, thank you. Have we had any requests for public comment?
Not on this item.
Thank you. All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to,
Vice Chair Niquin, this is Pamela Williams again.
yes,
If I can just make a suggestion that, that we allow Fabian to run through like a short description of each of the remaining maps before we go into it by district, if the commission would be so inclined to do that. That way we can understand from the start what the differences are. I think that'd be helpful for the commission.
okay, we can go ahead and do that. So the next agenda item is, for the next map, would be Sbri proposal, version 1 combined.
Version 1? You said version 1, correct?
Yeah, proposal version 1.
Right? I will open that up next.
So it's item 4, correct?
So this is version 1 map. A little background, I am the one who drew this map. So a little background on what I did here and why I made the choices I did. This was at direction from the commission in the last meeting to try and draw a map that kept Upland together, kept Fontana together, and kept San Bernardino together, whole, rather, not splitting those cities. That's what this map endeavors to do, is keep those specific communities together, and then the rest of it is drawn in a way that is to try to include communities of interest as have been submitted by people doing comments on the different meetings we've had. Starting again in the 4th district. The 4th district is again Chino Hills, Ontario, Montclair. This time, however, instead of going into Fontana, it takes Rancho Cucamonga, the southern part of Rancho Cucamonga. And the street line it uses is Foothill Boulevard. So everything south of Foothill in Rancho Cucamonga is included in the 4th district. Moving up, the 3rd district would be Upland, the rest of Rancho Cucamonga, San Antonio Heights. And this time it comes up and grabs Lido Creek, Wrightwood, and over across the forest into Lake Arrowhead, Running Springs, and then down across into Yucaipa, and then grabbing the rest of the county going east. So again, taking it from the eastern, to the western border of Los Angeles to the eastern border, which is the state line, and grabbing all the areas in between, including, I'm going to turn off the street layer so you can see this a little better, including Needles, Baker, and Fort Irwin, but not the city of Barstow. The 5th district would be the cities of Fontana, including the unincorporated area surrounding, that's Fontana surrounds, as well as Rialto and Bloomington, and half of Colton roughly. It follows a line that kind of stair-steps down and then follows the river, but it also includes Grand Terrace and Loma Linda, as well as the unincorporated area around Loma Linda, between Loma Linda and Redlands. And then the second to last, the 2nd district is Redlands, Highland, and the city of San Bernardino and the northern section of Colton, up until the forest line. And then the first district comes up and takes the Victor Valley and moves north, including Barstow, all the way to the northern border of the county. That's this map. And I believe Pamela had asked that I just give a short description of each one, and then we come back to talk about it afterwards. So
Yes.
I'll move on to the next one. And what would the next one do you want me to discuss with you?
So the next one on the agenda would be Agenda Item 5, which is Proposal Version 2.
Proposal version 2.
Yes.
Here's the second proposal. Again, this was using the direction of the commission on keeping certain areas together, but I also endeavored to try to keep more areas together and not split that last one split Colton. This one, I endeavored to only split the largest area, which would have been the city of San Bernardino. So this one only splits the city of San Bernardino. The fourth district, again, Chino Hills, Ontario, Montclair, and this time it takes the little section of the unincorporated area of Fontana that is outside of the city limits of Fontana and the unincorporated area. Then the second district would take Upland, San Antonio Heights, Rancho Cucamonga, and Fontana all into one district. The fifth district coming across is Rialto, Bloomington, and then it gets into Colton, Grand Terrace, and it takes almost all of San Bernardino, but loses this kind of section right here, which is I'm going to call it the eastern section, northeastern section of San Bernardino City. Leaving that into the third district, which then takes that, moves Highland, Redlands, Loma Linda, Yucaipa, Oak Glen, comes across the forest into the basin, and then it comes also around the top and grabs Barstow, as well as the rest of the county, all the rural area and the northern area of the county. Essentially one large rural district that goes all the way into Highland, if you will. And then the first district would be the Victor Valley, not as far as Silver Lakes, but south of that, including all the areas of the mountains, Big Bear City, Crest Lane, Lido Creek, Wrightwood. All right, you want me to move on to the next one?
So Agenda Item 6 is the map Proposal Version 3.
This is the one I'm expecting the most raised eyebrows. This one was not taking necessarily any direction from the commission, but just if I were drawing a map based on communities of interest, how would I do it? This particular map is actually drawn with the school district communities in line. So as stated, this map was using school district boundaries to be drawn. Again, we have in the fourth district in the bottom, we have the areas of Ontario, Chino Hills, Montclair, but this time it also takes up portions of Fontana and Rancho Cucamonga and a little tiny sliver of Upland, because these are the elementary school and unified school district lines. That's what these are following. Then we have the second district, which again, following school district lines, takes Rancho, Upland, San Antonio Heights, and moves over the top into the forest, into Wrightwood, into Pinion Hills, Phelan, and then part of Victorville and Hesperia Oak Hills, again, following school district lines. Then we have the fifth district, which takes Lido Creek, which I believe is in the Rialto School District, is why it comes up this high.
Yes, it is.
Comes down into Rialto, takes part of Fontana, most of Colton. Then you have the third district, which would take most of San Bernardino into Loma Linda, Redlands, Yucaipa, Oak Glen. Again, this is just, these lines you see are the school district lines. It's what they're following. And then the first district would be the rest of the county, including Crestline, Lake Arrowhead, out into the Morongo, 29 Palms, and then also the rest of the Victor Valley in the north area. And it kind of comes all the way out to the border.
Okay.
And you want to move on to the next one?
Yes, the Agenda Item 7 submission 1 combined map.
All right, this is the, excuse me, this is the public submission 1 map that I received. To be clear, we are receiving public submissions. As we get them, we'll be providing them to the administrative staff so they can get them set up and prepared for the next meeting and posting in the 5 days. So they're, so when we get them prepared for you to then agendize. So this is the first one we see that we were able to agendize. And going forward, we will make sure that they are put on the agendas with the appropriate time period within the.
Okay, thank you.
This is public submission 1, as stated. This district, I'm not certain who made it or what their reasoning were, so I'm just going to explain the districts as they're drawn. The fourth district takes Chino Hills, Ontario, Montclair, and moves into a little portion of Upland. Actually out here. My apologies, the delay here. Balance a little bit. So again, Chino Hills, Ontario, Montclair, and this time it takes a portion of Upland, but it respects the city line of Rancho Cucamonga. The second district takes all of Fontana, all of Rancho Cucamonga, the rest of Upland, San Antonio Heights, and also moves up into a little section above San Antonio Heights, not as far as Wrightwood, but a little section above it.
The Baldy section.
The Baldy section, yes, if you will, thank you. The fifth district is Rialto, City of San Bernardino, most of Colton and Bloomington. It does cut Colton here, you can see. So Colton is split, and then the rest of Colton and Grand Terrace is with Loma Linda, Redlands, Highland, as well as the mountain communities moving through Yucaipa and then all the way out into Morongo, 29 Palms, and to the eastern edge of the county. And then the first district would take the high desert area, move it north without including Barstow, and moving into the borders, the state line and the northern border of the county.
Excuse me, on this one, I might have missed it. Are there any cities that are cut up on this one?
Yes, in this specifically, in this one, you have the city of Upland is split. And I'll show you where it's split right here. I'll turn on the streets so we can see where it's split. It's split on Foothill Boulevard. So south of Foothill and Upland is in the 4th, north of Foothill and Upland is in the 2nd district in this map. And then also we have a split in the city of Colton. And this split looks like it's happening along the 215 freeway. So the western portion of the 215 is in the 5th district, the eastern section is in the 3rd district. And then I believe that was the only two, I have to double check on San Bernardino City. It looks like there is a little portion of the city of San Bernardino that's split
Southern.
right here.
What about Highland?
And moving
Is
into the 3rd district as well.
Is Highland also split?
Highland does not appear to be split. Highland appears to be intact.
Okay. So I'm going to open it up for questions or discussions on agenda items 4 through 7, which is the maps that Fabian has kind of given us a brief overview of. I do ask, though, when making comments or having questions, please be clear for the record in what map and agenda item that you're discussing. Is there any questions or comments by the commissioners?
Have one.
Okay.
We've
Yes, Judge King.
We've received a number of, a number of individuals have addressed the issue of keeping the incorporated cities as complete entities, and of course, we get that from other sources as well. So I don't know how much weight to give this consideration of school districts. That's not been presented in any of the testimony that I'm aware of, nor have I read much about that. What Madam Chair was speaking to in terms of Phelan and Brightwood made a great deal of sense to me, but you made a whole map with consideration of school districts, so that must have some validity that I'm not aware of.
In my, yeah, and that's a great question. In my experience with lots of different redistricting public input, a lot of times people bring up school districts as a community of interest. When tasked with the commission of drawing just some sample maps, it was just an easy one to look at and say, well, where are the school districts at? How would that look? And so I drew a map based totally on school districts, just so you can see what that would look like. It's more just for discussion. It's by no means necessarily the map I think you're going to choose. I don't think anybody liked that map who's seen it so far, but it is a version of a map that you could draw, just showing that it's possible to draw a map with school districts being the consideration and trying to keep those communities of interest together.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll open it to the alternate commissioners. Any questions or discussions?
San Manuel, sorry. Right.
Mr. Valdez, can you repeat the question?
So the question was, how is San Manuel recognized? San Manuel, the reservation, you can see here, it's a little tough to see on the overheads here. Maybe on Zoom, the people looking at Zoom might be a little easier to see. There's a different coloration. You can see it's kind of yellowish up here. On this one, I can see it a little better than that one. But San Manuel, Indian reservations are recognized by the census as designated places. So I have an actual outline of the Indian reservation right there. You can see San Manuel. That area is split in this map, and I think a few of the maps does split it. A few of the maps do split it. I believe there's one map where it does not. I'm not remembering just off the top of my head. But these maps, of course, if you didn't want to split it, we could obviously move it into one district or another. Absolutely.
So it's not recognized as an independent sovereign nation.
For the
Jurisdiction because of forest and everything.
Yeah, for the purposes of redistricting, the census still counts the bodies.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner
I have
Badgley.
a question for County Council. This particular version shows that there are potentially 3 districts that are majority-minority. Just going back to a comment that you've made about, trying to keep one district closest in percentage-wise, I think. I'm probably putting words in your mouth, but is the issue trying to keep a district close to the percentages that are currently there, or is it more important that we can now see that there are potentially 3 districts that could be majority-minority districts, and should be trying to accomplish that?
So under the Voting Rights Act and based upon the population here in the county, you currently have one district that's approximately 62 or 63% and one that's slightly over 50%. And an overall, I believe, percentage of approximately 40% of Latino citizen voting age population. Depending on where that population is located in the county, it may be appropriate to have one district that's slightly lower than 60%, but then the trade-off is you get 2 that are slightly over 50%. Or maybe you have one district that's closer to the 62 or 63% and a 52%, depending on how the population is split up in the maps. There's not a hard percentage that's required with the Voting Rights Act because it depends on where the population is located when you're looking at those. So you really do need to kind of look at it on a potential map-by-map basis. But those are different considerations to keep in mind. Also, you do need to make sure that population is fairly equal, although in theory you can have a 10% deviation. The goal would be to have it be less than that. So those are different things to think about. I hope that answered your question.
Kind of, just in my mind, I'm trying to think if a map would be valid with only 2 majority and minority districts, if in fact we would be able to draw a map that you can have 3. Or would they be subject to challenge in some way if we only had 2, even though you could potentially get to 3, given the considerations, the equal number, that it's contiguous, that it's in the same areas, those kinds of things?
I think you would have to discuss and the other considerations that are required under drawing maps and look at what the trade-offs are to get the 3 majority-minority districts. Does that mean that you're, splitting up communities of interests, that you're, having oddly shaped districts, et cetera? So I do think it becomes a trade-off analysis of what you would need to do to get the 3 majority-minority districts. That doesn't mean you shouldn't. But I think you'd have to kind of look at what you need to do to get there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or discussions on items 4 through 7? Yes, Commissioner Anderson.
Yes, I'm a little curious looking up at this map right here. We talk about not splitting communities of interest or even cities, but you're willing to split up a reservation. I'm kind of confused with what I was seeing there. It looks like it's cut in half. How much population is actually in that?
This area right here, correct?
Yeah.
There's definitely homes up there.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. If it's a reservation, if you look at basically just rough guessing it there, it looks almost 50-50, split between 2 districts. Why isn't that 1? That makes no sense to split a reservation down the middle when we're not willing to split a city. I just thought I'd bring that up. I mean, that really, I think you want to really make some people mad, I think that would make them mad.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Okay. Any further questions or discussion on these agenda items? Yes, Commissioner Besley.
I just, my thought would be to go through each one and see if there's something that is workable on them or not. On this particular map, I'm not sure. There are a number of hurdles I think we have to overcome, and I think the discussion maybe should be, should we continue considering this map in the future, or if not, maybe should we not? I mean,
Okay, kind of begin narrowing it down if need be for these maps. Is that correct?
yes, if possible.
Okay. So I would say let's kind of pull up, which one is 4, agenda item 4?
Do you want me to go back to that
Yes, it'd be proposal
1?
1.
My apologies before if I wasn't talking loud enough into the mic. And for those listening at home, if they weren't hearing me, my apologies. Okay, here is 1.
So I'd like to open this map up for discussion in terms of, is this something is this a map that the commission would want to continue to discuss and consider, or just move on from it? Question or comments from the commissioners
I would
or
recommend-
alternate commissioners?
I would recommend moving on.
Okay. Yes, Judge King.
It splits two cities, Colton and Rancho. And I think we should be able to ultimately come up with a product or map that does not split a city and also is in compliance with other considerations. So
Okay, then I would like to make a motion that we disregard map SBRI proposal version 1 combined.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crutchfield. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Excuse me, Madam Vice Chair.
Yes.
Really quickly, I just wanted to, for the record, I do not have any public comment for this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Monell.
there's someone wishing to speak, who's raising their hand.
Based on that motion, I'd like to make a public comment if it's appropriate.
Okay, you would like to make a public comment on agenda item 4?
This is the clarification, you say moving on or disregard? When you say, are you moving on from the map or eliminating the map from your consideration?
Eliminating,
Eliminating,
yes,
okay. And based on the fact that it splits a couple cities, correct?
correct.
At least.
Well, I would like,
Could bring it back up?
yeah, I would just like to make the comment that overall, I think as a consideration for District 3, it's pretty close to what I would make in terms of a public comment regarding my own district, which is District 3. I think
Correct.
it's actually, the way it's drawn is quite beneficial, and it captures the sort of communities of interest that I would point out are important in District 3. It excludes large urban areas in the San Bernardino Valley area, as well as the Victor Valley area, which don't really share a lot of our community interests. And so I would just say that's fine to discount, or sorry, to eliminate this map, but I would exhort you to pay close attention to how District 3 is drawn in this map and to give it further consideration in your final map. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Before you leave,
You're saying that you would like us to use this as a guideline?
Yes, for District 3, I don't have any comment as to the other districts.
Okay.
you said it reflects your communities of interest being together, but what are those specifically?
Okay, I can expound. I live in Morongo Valley, which is an unincorporated area here in the high desert, Morongo Basin area. And some of the problems I've had with other draft maps that you've proposed is that they include a lot of areas of redlands, highland into our area, as well as big portions of Victor Valley, whether it's Sbri or Apple Valley or Victorville or Barstow, that I don't really think have anything in common. Maybe geographically, they have some things in common with our desert communities out here in the Morongo Basin, but they are not, I fear, an elected representative representing our district would naturally come out of these higher population centers like Victorville or Redlands. And, those representatives hypothetically wouldn't really represent our values here in the Morongo Basin, which is primarily made up of rural communities with a lot of veterans and military activity, communities that have a huge tourist economy that they don't really share in communities like Redlands and Victor Valley. So I like the way this particular map draws District 3 because it's kind of in line with the way our assembly district is currently drawn. And, some of the Banning Pass area communities do share some things in common with our community. Things like places like Cherry Valley and Oak Glen are definitely tourist communities that share a lot with the economy here in the Morongo Basin. Whereas places in Victor Valley don't necessarily, and the mountain communities as well, places like Lake Arrowhead, Big Bear share a lot in common with the desert. We have access to those mountain communities uniquely through Lucerne Valley, the backside of what is it, I guess Route 18 connects us to those communities. And a lot of people you'll find
going directly from the high desert, the Morongo Valley community, excuse me.
That's time.
Okay, thank you for your comments. At this time, I'm going to move forward with the vote on this motion to disregard this particular map being SBRI Proposal Version 1 combined. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to the map presented in Agenda Item 5, SBRI Proposal Version 2 combined. I'd like to open this up for discussion. Discussion or questions by the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Jernigan.
Can you call up District 5 again, please?
Certainly. Zoom in over here for you. Here's District 5.
And as you stated, part of San Bernardino County is split.
But yeah, part of the city of San Bernardino right here is split. Let me, so you can see this area of San Bernardino City. You can see the city lines, and then there's actually, I was misspoke earlier, this area of Fontana around Bloomington is also in this district. As you can see, just this little sliver right here, Fontana, and then this part, it's I guess you would call it the northeastern section of the city of San Bernardino is included into the 3rd, not in the 5th. But the
That
5th
keeps
includes
Highland
the rest.
whole.
Highland is whole, yes.
And Loma Linda and Redlands.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And to one commissioner's point, this particular map also has a split here of the reservation, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was more of an arbitrary choice based on the city boundaries in this particular map, not anything, in particular wanting to split the reservation. This right here is the boundary of the city of San Bernardino, and so when selecting this map, it just chose that area, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Yes, Judge King.
So you're saying that it would be very easy to just include the entire reservation?
Yes.
And the numbers would not be prohibited?
It would be marginal effect, if any.
Thank you.
Can you add I'm sorry. Can you add the population to this map?
Would you like to know what that population is of that area?
Yeah, for that area.
I can't draw the map in this, but I can tell you what the population of that area is, if
Right.
that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
The population of that area is about 58 people.
Okay.
Is that Patton State Hospital or is it?
This is the San Manuel Reservation right here. That's what that is, what I just selected. That area, the area of the reservation that is in this map included in the 1st district was 58 people, or about that.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or discussion in regard to this map, commissioners? Commissioner Badsley?
I'll defer to Commissioner King.
Okay, Judge King?
I was just curious if there are any other cities that are split other than Fontana and San Bernardino?
In this particular map, no. I noticed there is a very tight line here on the Apple Valley, Hesperia kind of region. It's following the city boundaries. It's very likely that the people who live just outside of the city consider themselves Town of Apple Valley and even have it on their mail and such, but they're just not included in this. So it's not necessarily splitting the municipal boundaries, but it could be splitting the communities that might consider themselves part of that area, to be clear.
Thank you.
So is it your recommendation that if at all possible, when you're trying to include a city, that you also include, what is it called, the sphere of influence or whatever? Or
My recommendation is, when drawing things, you definitely want to listen to communities of interest, and you definitely want to not split up communities wherever possible. However, I think directly, you'd made a comment earlier about, there must be a way to draw a map that has every city not split, and we come to something that works. Sometimes that's possible, sometimes it's not. It just depends on, where you're drawing and what the numbers say, really. So in recommendation, yes, I would always defer to people of the community wanting to be, if the people who live just over here on this side on the 3rd District consider themselves, town of Apple Valley, yeah, I would recommend they be kept with Apple Valley, absolutely. But if doing so messes up the population deviation or messes up another community of interest or something of that nature, or, if it were done in the Voting Rights Act, attorney were to look at it and say you can't do that, then you wouldn't be able to.
Thank you. Is there any other, Commissioner Hazlett?
How are you contiguous over to Lido Creek? What are you creating as your ability to take right within Lido Creek and put it into the 3rd district?
Well, this is the 1st district. This is the first. Wrightwood and Lido Creek are in the 1st. Yeah, this yellow line denotes the boundary of the district.
My bad, I was looking at colors.
No worries. If you'd like, I can turn off the coloration. That makes it a little easier for you to look at.
Okay, is there any further discussion on agenda item 5's map? I would like to make a motion that we keep.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have a concern that if we go through these and eliminate one from further consideration, it may be as we get further down the line and we find ourselves that we cannot keep communities together, that we're going to have to accept a certain number of splits, that maybe this is a better split than some other split. I don't want to lose our ability to consider it, certainly.
Okay.
So for the time being, I prefer to not vote in favor of something that splits a community. But I would definitely want to be able to go back to this proposed map if we get to that point at a later time.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Sbri.
The commission can certainly, on any one of these maps, say to just continue it as a possible draft map, as opposed to what you did with the previous map where you eliminated it completely. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is in theory, if you down the road said, hey, I remember there was something about the previous map that we want to incorporate into future maps, that's always direction that the commission could consider giving.
Yes, Commissioner.
I agree with Commissioner King on this particular map. Anyways, I think there are some different things, but positive things that are contained with this map, and we have to remember that we have to recommend at least 2 maps to the board, if not more. I think it hits some of what the gentleman who spoke earlier says. It does not include the mountain communities, but a lot of the Morongo Valley and the high desert are all included in the same district. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we would continue with this one, I would ask that we would do the same thing on 2nd District as far as having that road to Baldy included in 2nd, just as for future discussion. So anyways, I would agree with Commissioner King, at least on this one, that we would not eliminate it.
Okay. And I actually was going to make a motion that we keep this map for discussion kind of at a later date if we choose to. Can I get a second for that motion?
Second.
Any discussion regarding the motion?
Are we recalling the earlier discussion and putting this map back on the table? Or,
This map we have not voted on.
oh, I'm sorry, okay, yes.
Yeah. So any other discussion in regard to this motion on the agenda item 5? Okay, all in favor? Oh, Ms. Monell?
Wanted to say again for the record, we do not have any public comment on this item.
Thank you. Thank you for catching that every time for me. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, or opposed? Excuse me. Hearing none, the motion passes. So do we want to open up, I don't know if we can, the agenda item 4 and remove that motion and change it? Can we do that, Ms. Sbri? In regard to disregarding or keeping the map?
You can, if
Okay.
the commission wants to take a vote to reconsider item number 4. What I was trying to say is, if there's parts of that map in the future you wanted to consider, you could. That you voted to eliminate it for future consideration today just means that it's not going to be a future potential map on agendas other than the one for tomorrow.
Okay. So I think I would like to take a vote to see if the commission would like to reconsider leaving that map available. Is that sufficient?
I think first you take a motion and a second to
In
reopen
the agenda?
the
Okay.
item number 4.
Okay.
Okay, and then if that passes, you would make your motion regarding that actual map.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion to reopen agenda item 4. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Okay. Second from Judge King. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion fails. So agenda item will
If I
4.
could get for the record, I didn't catch all of, okay, if I can, what I think I got was Commissioner Nakim and Judge King were ayes.
Correct.
Commissioner Crefeld and Basley were nay. I wasn't sure what Commissioner Jernigan
Nay.
and Commissioner Little.
Nay, please.
So the motion does not pass.
Does not pass, correct.
And if I could say, it doesn't mean we can't look at this map and pull some arguments from it or what have you. It just means this map isn't going to be agendized in the future as a whole, is my understanding. Does that sound right, Ms. Sbri?
Yes, other than it is on the agenda for tomorrow.
Right, okay.
Okay.
It's a stay of sentencing.
Thank you. So we will be moving on to agenda item 6 with the map SBRI proposal version 3 combined. So I would like to make a motion on keeping this map available for further discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jernigan. Any discussion? Okay. Yes, Judge King.
This is the one that's based on the school districts. It splits up umpty-million cities, excuse me,
Okay.
a number of cities, right?
Yes, this is the one that was based on school districts, yes.
Okay. Yes, this is the one that is based on school districts. Okay.
And this one also splits Victorville from Pinion Hills, Balin, Hesperia, and Oak Hill.
Yeah, this one splits a number of cities, Victorville being one of them. It splits San Bernardino City, it splits Fontana, splits Rancho Cucamonga, portion of Upland. There's just, name a city, it probably splits it, but so do school districts apparently. So, that's what I would say.
And then, and this one, you look at second district, it has a part of Rancho Cucamonga, and it crosses over the mountain, and then has those other districts. It's just, it seems a little odd as a configuration, but then I looked at some of the third districts that we've looked at, and it probably is not any different, but.
Yes, Commissioner Little.
Yeah, if I may, a city being split may be the best thing that ever happened to it. However, so I don't mind that it splits cities, but I would say this one, Hesperia and Rancho Cucamonga via a route you can't actually drive, connects the two, and they are not really communities of interest. Hesperia is really aligned with Victorville. I see Hesperia, Victorville, essentially the same community, Victor Valley. Mr. Creffield may have some thoughts on this as well, but, and it may violate the rule of compactness, which is a lower order consideration under our criteria. I think it's the last of our criteria, but nonetheless, the shape does attract that argument.
Yeah, in the Victor Valley, I mean, Victorville and Hesperia are right next to each other, so to split that more or less right in half, you know, because when you go drive up the pass to the high desert, I mean, you're driving right into Hesperia, and then you hit Victorville, and then you have Adelanto, Apple Valley. It's just one area, and I think this just wouldn't, I don't think this would work very well.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and withdraw my motion to keep this map available. Any further discussion on this agenda item?
Does Commissioner Jernigan also withdraw his second?
Yes. I think we're going to vote it down anyway.
Well, should we affirmatively vote this down, or do we just, if we do nothing, does it continue onward, Ms. Sbri, or do we?
Given what you did with item number 4, and that it's also on the agenda for tomorrow, for the record, it might be best to make a motion in a second to eliminate it, similar to what you did with item 4, if that's the will of the commission.
I will so move.
I'll second.
With no offense to Mr. Valdez, who did, and incidentally, if we can move to discussion of that, I will say that noodling around with these is really helpful, and thinking outside the box and being experimental is really helpful. Whether we take that map en toto into future meetings or not is no reflection on some of the attempts you're making here, and some of the arguments around school districts boundaries live on, even if this map doesn't.
I can assure the commission, I have never taken offense to someone not liking the map I've drawn. I've drawn far too many maps that have been completely disregarded to ever take offense to it, so by no means are you upsetting me at all.
And I don't, like I say, you could form a community of interest around school districts. For example, you know, the Etowanda School District goes into the city of Fontana. It's largely a Rancho Cucamonga School District, but it goes into Fontana. The which is a K through 8 school district. The high school district includes some but not all of Fontana as well. Summit High, for example, is in Chaffey Joint Union High School District. It's not in Fontana Unified School District. So it's like I say, it's an effort worth keeping an eye on, and we appreciate your thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't expect you guys to love it, and that's okay. Luckily, if you do want to look at any school district boundaries in the future, I have it as a layer on the map. I can always bring it up. If you wanted to look at it, we could.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Please be for the record, there is no public comment.
Thank you.
Aye.
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 Motion is to eliminate this map.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay, all opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. That was 6, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 7, which is the map Public Submission 1 combined. I'm gonna open up for discussion or questions from the commissioners or alternate commissioners.
I just had a question on this map.
Yes, Commissioner Creflo.
Which cities were still split? I think, was it Upland and I think another one maybe?
Upland and Colton.
Yes, on this particular one, it splits out a portion of Upland south of Foothill, and then it also splits Colton on the, I think, the 215 freeway.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, if I'm,
San Bernardino, I think.
San
I
Bernardino.
believe a portion of San Bernardino is cut on this one, but, oh, maybe not. No, what it is, it's a portion of Redlands is cut on this map. This area right here of the river, this area technically is in the city of Redlands, but it is drawn into the 5th district. Highland is kept whole.
But that's a wash anyway.
Yeah, I don't know how many people, I mean, I can Obviously, I can look and see if you wanted to know how many people were in this area.
Nobody.
That has approximately, well, let me pull up my numbers here. There's 0 people in it. So even though it is City of Redlands, there aren't any people living there, correct?
Yeah, it's a wash. It's a quarry and a wash. That's what it is.
Okay, is there any further discussion from the commissioners or alternate commissioners on item number 7? Okay, at this time, I'd like to call for public comment, which we have one speaker, Nicholas Christensen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, at the risk of sounding redundant here, I have one more comment to make at the end of the meeting, but in regards to this particular map, I just wanted to point out again, being connected with the community of Redlands, and I guess you also have Grand Terrace in this map, and
Double
parts of
check that, but
Colton.
I believe that is accurate, yeah.
Yeah, I would just reiterate that these communities don't really have much in common with any other part of District 3, whereas the mountain communities and the Morongo Basin do represent, and areas east of there do represent one contiguous entity. When it comes to Barstow, is something I also wanted to bring up again, because you guys discussed it earlier, definitely does, in my knowledge and experience, organizing, and by the way, I am a small business owner here in Yucca Valley. My name is Nicholas Christensen. Barstow very much shares a lot in common with the Victor Valley area, economically speaking, and I would definitely take that into consideration in your final maps. I don't see any problem with including the mountain communities in District 3, or even any areas of the Banning Pass, Yucaipa, Oakland. But I would consider going down into Redlands and other parts of the San Bernardino Basin somewhat inappropriate from a cultural and economic standpoint. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. At this time, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, which at this time, the commission...
Madam Vice Chair, were we going to take a motion to continue consideration of this map? Disregard, what was our motion for this item?
We did not have one. So I will make a motion that we keep this map for further reference.
I second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Crutchfield. Any discussion on this motion? Any public comment?
We just took public
Okay.
comment from Mr. Christensen.
That would be that, okay. All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes to keep this map as for further reference. Now moving on to agenda number 8. The commission will provide direction to Redistricting Insights about possible draft maps to be presented to the commission at future meetings. And I just want to remind everyone that future meetings would not be tomorrow night because we don't have time to agendize it properly. So it would be next Wednesday, if possible. Is that correct, Ms. Sbri?
Well, it will definitely not be tomorrow.
Okay.
And at this time, whether it would be Wednesday or not. But
Okay.
it could be a future meeting.
So future meeting, but definitely not tomorrow evening. Do any of the commissioners have direction that they would like to give to Redistricting Insights or alternate commissioners? Yes, Commissioner
I guess I have a
Badgley.
question on timing, similar to this one then. If the meeting is next Wednesday, any map that would have to be drawn would have to be submitted by tomorrow at,
I would have to defer whether our location on Wednesday requires us to post on Thursday. Some of them are closed on Fridays. It's 5 days under the elections code. But given that our consultants are working tomorrow on the map drawing, that's why I can't commit to anything being on the agenda for next week.
And that's kind of what I was trying to get to, was realistically, the only way to get something on for next Wednesday.
So I believe on a
Thursday?
If I could just interject for just a moment.
Yeah.
The location for next week's meeting is open Friday, so they can post the agenda on Friday.
All right.
Are we referring to the 21st? It's a 6 PM meeting.
6 PM. So I believe in our call with staff yesterday, we discussed that if we were able to post, agendize it and post it by 4 o'clock on Friday, then we would be able to go forth, and the city of Chino Hills was going to be available for that. So it's 4 o'clock on Friday is the deadline. That's correct, right, Ms. Monell?
That is correct.
So I guess the question is, would we be able to give direction tomorrow after the workshop to get a map done by Friday at 4 o'clock? Or if we have any ideas today?
Tomorrow, given that our meeting is at 6 PM, I do not believe that any direction would be able to be then agendized for next Wednesday, the meeting at Chino Hills, because, I mean, there'd be very little time to do that quickly.
All right. I haven't thought about this, but I'm trying to think if there are any maps that we haven't discussed that may be a little different or modified in some way that we haven't talked about today, that we should be giving direction to the consultant so that we can discuss it next week, and trying to think that far ahead. I don't have any, but seeing the number of days that we have left, we are kind of narrowing ourselves down to today, the 3 maps, and any changes we have tomorrow, I guess. Trying to figure this out in my mind.
Well, the commission could give direction to the consultants that at a future meeting, they'd like to see a map that incorporates whatever your direction is. That doesn't mean that it's going to be next Wednesday, the 21st.
So after that meeting, we have a meeting in Crestline and a meeting in Ontario, and that's it. Is that correct, after the Chino Hills one?
So that is correct. There's a meeting on the 21st in Chino Hills, a meeting on the 27th in Crestline, and then November 2nd, there's a meeting in Ontario. And at that meeting, November 2nd, the commission needs to vote to recommend at least 2 maps to the Board of Supervisors. And then on November 9th, 16th, and December 7th, there are joint meetings between the commission and the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Hazlett.
I actually just have a quick question on this. Do we have to take in consideration where the current supervisors live, so we don't out-district them?
Okay, no, that is not a consideration under the Elections Code. The location of the supervisors is not a consideration under the Elections Code.
Taking into account, can I put it this way? I'm more blunt. Taking into account where the current supervisors lives is an illegal criterion, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
Just my opinion.
So at this time, do the commissioners or alternate commissioners have any further instruction for redistricting insights? For maps that they would like to see at future meetings? Okay, seeing none. At this time, I'm going to go ahead, or
Just a moment, just also wanted to say no public comment for item number 8, but I do have public comment, General.
just remembered, so. It's not that I forget the public comment, I just forget to follow my script sometimes. So at this time for agenda item number 9, this is public comment, and we're going to call up Nicholas Christensen.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I initially slated this comment for the end because I didn't know where else to comment before. I didn't review the agenda in depth before this meeting. In general, I guess my comment has to do, since I've already been able to speak on the map specifically, my comment has to do with how this commission engages the public. And I know you guys are trying hard, and thank you very much for being here and participating in this process. It's very important, as I'm coming to understand, as I learn about it more. This may be one of the more important processes in our democracy, and not a lot of people know how to be involved or necessarily want to be involved. So thank you for doing your best to make sure as many people are getting their voice heard as possible, keeping communities together. It's very important work. But I think we can do better in terms of engaging the public, and as it says on the agenda, these meetings are here to address and involve the public. And of course, you have this video monitor set up and you're available online. I don't take issue with how you're doing these meetings all over the county, which is great. I don't take issue with the sort of infrastructure, I guess, that you've put in place, but more so how the meetings are run. I have a couple suggestions. When you begin a meeting, I know that's what minutes are for, and you cover your bases by having minutes from older meetings, but it would go a really long way to welcoming people into these meetings if you were to go do a little review as to what you've covered thus far in prior meetings and how your process works in general. It's very confusing as a member of the public and me from the beginning seeking as much information as I can about these meetings and how this process works. Even I am still pretty confused about when the proper time is to make a comment, how to make a comment exactly, how to have my voice heard. And I'm doing as much as I can in the background to involve more people in this process, but it would go a long way if these meetings were run with a little bit more mind to, oh, I'm an ignorant person walking into this room, I heard about this meeting, what's going on, right? Just addressing what's going on or what's already happened, what decisions have been made, how the process works generally. In a very layman's terms way would go a long way to helping people feel a little bit more invited and encouraged to participate. So generally, that's my comment. I also heard from some other people that they found difficulty finding census information, county-specific census information. I know a lot of these maps are drawn using the new 2020 census information, but I don't know if that information is readily available to the public as of now, anywhere on the county's website. So I would encourage county staff or you to direct, or the commissioners to direct county staff to make that information more available so that when we're making these maps and public comment, we can be more informed.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I do want to direct that a part of our website for the commission is the links to the Maptitude, where the public is encouraged to draw maps, and the current 2020 census data is there uploaded into the maps, as well as our email address is available there, and we do take public comment through the email address. So I would encourage the public to utilize this commission's website. And I'm not sure, but if you need that information, Alyssa and Andrew in the back more than likely would be able to help you with that. At this time, I'd like to move on and ask the commissioners if anyone has any individual comments that they would like to. Yes, Commissioner Jernigan.
I want to thank Fabian for your efforts in providing these maps. I think they were definitely beneficial to us and eye-opening in some cases, and just looking forward to continue working with you.
I would
Commissioner
agree.
Baisley?
I would agree with that comment. It was finally nice after all these months to look at a map with numbers, and appreciate your efforts in getting us as many maps as you did with the different varieties. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that too. Thank you very much. It was nice to have a meeting where we're actually looking at maps and, you know, getting our brains going a little bit as we're looking at these. So again, thank you for your efforts and all this. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Little?
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Judge King? Yes.
Are the census numbers, or those documents with all the census numbers, one of the documents that was posted in the list of documents? I'm asking Mr. Wertz. I believe there's a whole list of documents that you posted on the website that you discussed being available.
Are you referring to the document that I gave that had all the cities with the census numbers and breakouts
Yes,
of that?
I'm wondering if that was one of the documents that was posted by Mr. Wertz' staff.
Yes, all the presentations that you've received in the different meetings, all of those attachments are included in the minutes posted on the San Bernardino County Redistricting website.
So Mr. Christensen could direct people to those documents and get the census information he's seeking.
Yes, and it's also on the Maptitude map drawing
Correct, but
website.
some people have had difficulty with that, so it's also in that list of documents that you can specifically go to it. I just wanted to confirm that, so that he would know.
Like I said, all the attachments from all the presentations are included in the minutes that are posted on that website. What I don't know is whether that particular document is laid out separately. I'm not sure it is. I believe those things are all in the minutes for whatever meeting they were presented at.
Are we referring to this document that has the census?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do Commissioner Anderson, do you have any comments? Commissioner Hazlett? Commissioner Reynolds? Okay. So again, I just want to say that I think this meeting was really useful, that we were able to, start looking at maps and kind of discussing and seeing what people's ideas and thoughts were. And I do want to direct Mr. Christensen to check out our website. There's a lot of useful data there. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the Advisory Redistricting Commission. The next scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, October 14th at 6 p.m. at the San Bernardino County Government Center.
If I could make a quick correction, Madam Vice Chair, Thursday. That's
Thursday?
tomorrow evening.
I apologize. It says Wednesday. Thursday, tomorrow at 6 p.m. at San Bernardino County Government Center, Covington Chambers. Thank you.